Welcome to the 13th and final IndieRef Weekly Review, bringing you one last roundup of news you maybe missed before the Scottish independence referendum later this week. Today we'll be looking at new powers, the economy and a quick history lesson. But first, banks and businesses this week were drawn thoroughly into the debate for Scottish independence when it was reported that RBS and Lloyds Bank would be leaving Scotland in the event of a yes vote, and prices would rise in supermarkets. A Better Together leaflet was released that stated an average shop in Tesco could be 16% higher after a yes vote, just like in Ireland, which prompted Tesco to come forward and state quite unequivocally that this is not true. They went on to point out that due to the different legislation in place in Ireland, many products were actually cheaper than the UK. But this was only the beginning of an onslaught of misinformation to come from Better Together over the last week. The same story was spread about Asda, who came forward and said also that this was not true. They went as far as saying that prices in an independent Scotland could actually be lower. We've also been told that RBS would move south and take all their jobs with them, which then prompted RBS to come forward and release their own statement, again saying that, and say it with me now folks, this was not true. And that they were looking at contingency plans that would see the registered headquarters heading south, but no actual change in terms of jobs and operations. We were also told that Lloyds would move their headquarters to London, which is interesting since their headquarters are already in London. We were told that Standard Life would leave Scotland. We were told that 40 years ago too, as Standard Life have been threatening to leave since the 1979 referendum on whether or not we should have our own parliament. We were told by Deutsche Bank that a yes vote would result in a Great Depression, but Deutsche Bank also said that would happen if Germany introduced a minimum wage. We were told that on hearing how close the vote had become, the markets became unstable. But let me tell you something you might not know. The same thing happened in 1992 when the Labour Party almost got into power. The same thing happened in 1990 when Thatcher resigned. Because all changes result in temporary instability. What's interesting though is that a report published by Stagecoach actually listed the next UK general election as likely to have a bigger impact on businesses and markets than our independence referendum, with the proposed in-out referendum on the EU being a part of that. Already we have seen US banks looking at contingency plans to move to Ireland to remain a part of the European Union in case the UK leaves it. There was also speculation that currency instability actually stemmed specifically from George Osborne's refusal to discuss a currency union, with Anton Muscatelli, Dean of the University of Glasgow, stating that this refusal was nothing short of an act of economic vandalism. Of course markets would react, although it is worth noting they recovered very quickly afterwards. Now, as we reach the final days of the campaign, we are being bombarded with news of apparent economic collapse. But Scotland's GDP is currently higher than France, Japan and even the rest of the UK. This week we even had the former chairman and chief executive of the Royal Bank of Scotland, Sir George Matheson, stating that Scotland choosing to determine its own future is a very sound proposition, not just for people here, but for the wider British economy and the financial markets. How can anyone realistically say that despite that, we are somehow uniquely unable to manage our own affairs and our own wealth? This week on Project Fear, the ongoing campaign to keep you scared of independence, we find out a lot of things. If we vote yes, there will be rising unemployment. There will be job losses across the board. The startup costs will be phenomenal, the shipyards will be hit the hardest, the oil is running out, and our role in the world will be diminished. The ability to raise our own tax will only end up costing us money, and if we vote yes, the number of MPs that Scotland has at Westminster would fall from 71 to about 57. And hang on, that doesn't sound right. Oh, I see the problem. I'm actually reading from the arguments against setting up a Scottish Parliament that were used against us in 1979. There's just something so familiar about them. Well, either way, we know that more powers are definitely coming. If we vote no, there will be more powers on the table and a new bill put forward that will actually give us a better deal. A no vote will not kill devolution, says Thatcher, and I'm reading from the 1979 referendum again. But of course, we didn't get a better deal in 79. It actually took almost 20 years before we had the chance to vote on it again, and by that time Scotland had seen a huge rise in unemployment. We lost most of the shipbuilding and manufacturing industry, and Scotland is still recovering from it in one way or another. It's the same scare tactics now as it was then, but surely we won't fall for them again. After all, William Hague, the leader of the House of Commons, has already said that new powers for Scotland in the event of a no vote is not the government's policy. It's just a manifesto promise. Christopher Chobe, a Conservative MP, has even told the BBC that there are enough backbench Conservative MPs in Parliament who are against more powers going to Scotland that, in the event of a no vote, they're going to vote against them. They're not coming. This week there was other really positive news. Aberdeen Assets Management, the country's largest asset manager, has come forward and said that an independent Scotland would be a success. That's just another voice adding to the economic case for Scotland. And in the same week we've heard that MPs in Westminster have allowed their expenses to reach levels again that are higher than during the peak of the expense scandal in 2009. All of this while they discuss a 9% pay rise amidst huge cuts to the rest of the country. They don't change, and they won't change. But we have the chance to. We have the chance on Thursday to bring about change, not only for us, but to challenge the Westminster system that thinks that that is acceptable. And more importantly, that they can just keep doing it over and over, no matter the consequences. Whatever the result, Scotland has awoken to its political potential. There's been a long-running narrative from the No campaign throughout the past year that this referendum has been so divisive. But that is the natural state of anyone who has an opinion. It only feels divisive because we've never stood together like this before, never been so ready to make the case for whether or not we should make a political decision before. Did I know about the UK's balance of payments prior to this referendum? Nope. But more importantly, did I see the potential that Scotland has to be something great? Did I see the potential to bring about real change in the world? No. And I didn't see our poverty either. The question you will be asked on Thursday is much simpler than you may have expected. With both sides shouting numbers and stats at each other, it's become a deafening roar of debate. We know that we can be a successful independent country. Even David Cameron has said so. The question now is, should we be? So really it comes down to this. Do you want to stand in solidarity with the people of Liverpool and Manchester? Or do you want to stand with the people of Liverpool and Manchester, but also Paris, Berlin, Barcelona and New York? This isn't about borders, it's about local democracy, and Scotland's exit can inspire radical change with the rest of the people of the UK, who we will still be standing with as they march to protect the NHS and for every other push they make for progressive change. Do you want Scotland to be a part of an island or a part of the world?